45.
I can feel my legs, my arms. What a relief. Despite that terrible crash, I was still alive. So, quickly, I got up from the embankment and tried to ask for help from the people nearby. But, for some very strange reason, none of them noticed me. I was getting really distressed when finally, a man who seemed the calmest of them all came to talk to me and asked me to follow him to see the accident scene. When I got there, I realized my own fear, and then this man told me that I had not survived and that I was dead in that moment. And I, who had been an atheist my whole life, could not believe that after death I was there, feeling more alive than in all the recent years of my life. But at that moment, all I could think about was how my family would react, how my wife would manage without me to care for our 2 little kids. All I wanted was to go back to them. But when this worry was consuming me, that man calmly told me that everything would be all right and all the answers would come if I just followed him. So, as I followed his request, I never expected that on that very day, I would have the most unbelievable experience of my life, meeting God personally. Upon following that man, he asked me to hold his hand, and when I did, I immediately felt the most loving energy I've ever felt. Then, suddenly, a bright white light enveloped me, and I fell asleep. And later, I discovered something very important that I would like to share with you on Earth. Reading my letter. The place you'll go will depend on what you cultivated in life. By affinity, you'll go to the plane of existence where your level of consciousness resonates. But know that you, people of good heart, will always be supported by someone right after death. Be it a relative, a spiritual friend, or simply someone assigned to this task. It will take you to another plane, just as it happened to me in this moment. The next memory I have is waking up from a dream with a feeling completely different from anything I've ever felt. I was light, full of vitality, and absolutely at peace. It was like waking up and knowing there are no problems to solve and no worries to think about. I was on a sort of stretcher, which paradoxically was both cold and warm at the same time. The place was very airy and futuristic, with walls almost entirely made of what looked like glass. In the moment, I thought I must be in some sort of otherworldly clinic. Suddenly, a type of light started to appear coming towards me. At first, it was something translucent and blurry, but each time it got closer, it grew to a proportion that, to my perception, seemed like a mistake. And when it reached my side, I realized it was my grandfather, who had passed away about 20 years ago. Curiously, when I heard him, I didn't feel surprised or euphoric. For some reason, on a deeper level of my being, I was sure he still existed, and I was certain he would be there to welcome me. Just as when someone dies in your dream, when you wake up, you're not surprised to see that same person by your side. To be honest, that was the feeling I had, as if I had woken up from a brief, fleeting dream. The words spoken by my grandfather came to me as thoughts, and without saying anything, I understood everything, that he loved me and had been with me for a long time. He informed me that my stay at that clinic was over, and cheerfully asked me to get up, as he was going to show me the new life that awaited me. Later, I found out that upon reaching the spiritual plane, I was immediately taken to this type of hospital due to my accident. Because although I'm no longer using my physical body, my perispirit still holds repercussions from the incident. Not everyone will need to pass through here first, but for those who do, know that this place is nothing like the hospitals on Earth. Here, extremely advanced technology is used, like fluidic therapy and above all, brotherly love. So right after this brief passage through that place, I went to see the magnificent life that awaited me. Then, as I left that place with my grandfather, I simply couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my life. An extremely organized and futuristic city, full of trees, flowers, and a surprising feeling that life was present in every little corner. My grandpa then tells me we're in a city on the spiritual plane that lies just above the earth, almost entering space. But because everything in that dimension vibrates at a subtler frequency, including our bodies, it's imperceptible to those on earth. As I started to walk, I realized my entire consciousness had expanded. I know it's hard for you on earth to comprehend this, but my vision was seeing a reality, not just more beautiful or brighter, but more real. It's like all our time on earth we've been looking through fogged up glasses, and here we take those glasses off and see life as it truly is, how it really is. And it wasn't just the vision. With every rose I touched, I felt the energy in my fingers merging with its energy. It was as if my hand and the rose were the same thing. With every breath I took, it felt like God's breath was entering me. And every person that passed by, I felt a connection and an unexplained love. All I could think was, how could I have forgotten all this? Then at that moment, my grandfather told me we should take the central path, as he wanted to show me the wonderful workings of the operation that coordinates all reincarnations and life on our planet. When we got there, I was amazed by the level of technological operation that existed in that place. Until then, an elegant and beautiful woman with dark hair came towards us. And as if she had been expecting us, she cheerfully said, "Welcome, citizen of the cosmos. This is the place where we coordinate the reincarnations of souls on the surface of planet Earth. All of this is part of a gigantic and complex project for consciousnesses coming from other places in the universe to incarnate on the surface of Earth, thus experiencing a learning journey for their consciousnesses. But not just human consciousnesses, no, but also Ademic consciousnesses. Like, for example, all animal species that arrived on Earth millions of years before the first human soul incarnated there. So, all souls incarnated on Earth, as they are not originally from this planet, all of them are extraterrestrial souls." And when she said that, I was dazzled to know how it all worked. But still not understanding something, I asked her where we actually are. It was like another dimension. Then she replied, "Currently, we are in the fourth spiritual dimension. These dimensions can be understood as planes above planet Earth. You, for example, a few hours ago, were on the densest plane of the planet, known as the physical dimension. And above it, imbued with a less dense matter, we have the plane or dimension that many people on Earth call the threshold. And consequently, like the layers of an onion, these surfaces or dimensions keep growing and becoming more subtle. And the higher and more subtle this dimension is, the closer it is to the creative source." Still not understanding something crucial, I asked her, "But why can't people on Earth see these dimensions and this gigantic reality that exists?" Then she replied, "This entire reality is made of much less dense matter, where electromagnetic waves pass through the matter with much more ease. And that's why it becomes invisible to the sensors and the eyes of those incarnated on Earth. And the only way for humans using their bodies down there to go to these dimensions is by leaving their bodies during the night. But our stay in that place is already coming to an end. Follow me, and I will show you the real reason for your arrival." And as soon as she said that, we walked over to a gigantic machine that even seemed to have a life of its own. Incredulous, I quickly asked what that was, and she answered, "This is one of the monitoring biomachines. It has its own intelligence and knows everything about the people who are incarnated down on Earth. It stores information from the very first second a person incarnates there until the last breath of their departure. It monitors medical, psychological, emotional parameters, and even intuits the individuals incarnated on Earth with dreams, messages, ideas, and the opening of spiritual faculties. Although many people on Earth think their guides monitor them 24 hours a day, that's not what actually happens. I wonder what their lives would be like if they spent so much time on this. We use this high technology as an aid, And the information stored in this machine will be used by the Karmic Council to plan people's next incarnations on Earth. From someone who did a good deed, like helping a little animal, to someone who contributed to an animal's suffering by consuming its life. All this is stored here, creating a collective dharma or karma for humanity. To human eyes, wrong actions might even go unnoticed. But for us, everything is recorded and the law of karma never fails. Then, as soon as she said that, my grandfather called me and told me there was a big surprise for me. And having already gone through many, I couldn't imagine it getting any better. So we left that place and started walking through the city again. With every step we took, everything became more familiar, like a great return to a place I'd been to many times in the past. So we stopped in front of a charming white house, where my grandfather told me that it was where we used to live before we incarnated on Earth. And when I went inside, I had one of the greatest surprises I could receive. There were many members of my spiritual family. Some had lived with me in the last life, while others, I couldn't remember our history very well. I only had the absolute certainty that our connection went back thousands of years. In that fantastic moment, a long and warm conversation with all of them went on for quite some time. Quite a lot of time had passed in that place, but my grandfather, looking at me, seemed to read all my thoughts and doubts that were in my head. He noticed my greatest doubt without me having to tell him. With all of this, where is God? Then, he took me to a garden far from the city and mysteriously told me that God was waiting for me. So, as we sat down, he asked me to do some spiritual breathing practices. And there I stayed for quite a long time in that practice. Suddenly, without any prior warning, I felt a great expansion within me, as if the walls of my being dissolved into infinity. My mind, usually a whirlwind of thoughts and worries, was now calm, vast as the clear summer sky. It was then that I started to experience God. I felt part of something much greater, a tiny spark in the vastness of an eternal flame. I was at the same time the drop and the ocean, the creator and the creation. I felt part of everything, every tree, every star, every blade of grass, every breath of each creature seemed to be in harmony with me. In this state, the notion of I or mine vanished. It was like I was seeing the world through a new set of eyes, without judgments, without desires, without fears. I was part of God, or maybe God was a part of me. There was no difference. I understood then that separation is an illusion, a creation of the mind. In reality, everything is one, interconnected in a cosmic dance of pure light and energy. My consciousness had expanded beyond the limits of my physical body. The doors of perception were open to God. After this experience, I would like to tell all of you incarnated on Earth who are reading my letter that you don't need to die to connect with God. You connect with God every time you see others as part of yourselves, and every time you vibrate love for all creatures and all creation.